Have you ever really stopped to think about what it takes to get to Hawaii? Today it's a few clicks online and a handful of hours in the air. But that super simple journey is actually the final, tiny chapter in this incredible story of innovation, courage, and technology. So let's dive in and explore how that journey evolved, from the very first courageous wayfinders all the way to the modern jet age. Okay, first, let's just wrap our heads around the sheer scale of this. To get to Hawaii, you have to cross the Pacific, the single largest body of water on the entire planet. For most of human history, that was one of the most daunting challenges you could possibly imagine.
And this slide just nails the difference, right? Imagine a journey that took months, where your life literally depended on your skill and the weather every single day. Now, that exact same journey is about 6 hours. That's the length of a couple of movies on a plane. The contrast is just, well, it's staggering.
This quote right here, this is pretty much the core idea of our whole explainer today. No one ever just stumbled upon Hawaii by accident. It was a journey of purpose and will.
So, let's go all the way back to the very beginning, with the original masters of the Pacific, the first wayfinders. These were the people who intentionally made that incredible crossing for the first time.
And they did it using the science of wayfinding. Forget GPS, forget a compass, forget all of it. This was the art of navigating thousands of miles of open water using only the world around you. It was this extraordinary display of scientific observation and deep, deep knowledge passed down through generations.
So how in the world did they do it? Well, their map was literally woven from nature itself. They read the star patterns at night like a celestial road map. They could actually feel the direction of deep ocean swells in the hull of their canoes. These are currents that travel for thousands of miles. They knew how clouds form over islands you can't even see yet, and they knew the exact flight paths of birds that always return to land. And that is the key thing to remember. These weren't just sailors hoping for the best. They were scientists and explorers in the truest sense. To them, the ocean wasn't some scary barrier. It was a highway that connected a vast network of islands, creating what some have called the most extensive nation on Earth. So for centuries, this oceanic highway belonged entirely to the Polynesians. But that was all about to change. A new era was dawning, one where the islands would be placed on the world map and their destiny would be forever altered. This timeline here really lays out that next pivotal chapter for us. You can see the long period of Polynesian settlement, and then, boom, the arrival of Captain Cook, the unification of the islands, and finally, the dawn of a totally new kind of travel with the first steamships. Now, while some Spanish sailors might have drifted through earlier, it was Captain Cook's arrival in 1778 that was the definitive turning point. When he landed, he officially put Hawaii on Western maps, and that opened the door for traders, missionaries, and this huge wave of global interaction.
And in the years that followed, the islands were unified under a single rule. The Hawaiian Kingdom was established, and this was a sophisticated, internationally recognized nation that sent its own diplomats around the globe and engaged with other world leaders on its own terms.
And all this new global connection kicked off a kind of technological race to shrink the Pacific. The Industrial Revolution arrived, and with it came brand new ways to conquer the vast distances of that giant ocean.
For those first Western visitors, the journey was a total epic. Crossing the Pacific by sail could take months. It was this long, often dangerous voyage that was completely at the mercy of the wind. But then came the game changer, steam. All of a sudden, the journey wasn't measured in months anymore, but in days. Steamships were way faster, way more reliable. But, of course, there was a catch. Tickets were incredibly expensive. A trip to Hawaii was a luxury reserved for only the very wealthy. Then, the next great leap took to the skies. Early aviation, from the 1930s to the 50s, brought even more speed. But just like the steamships, it was super exclusive. This whole era was fueled by that glamorous Hollywood image of a specific paradise, making it the ultimate destination for elite travelers.
So the big story of this era is really one of incredible compression. Think about that. In less than a century, technology literally transformed a journey of months into one of mere days. The Pacific was shrinking, fast.
But there still wasn't travel for everybody, right? So how did a trip to Hawaii go from being this exclusive luxury to something that millions of people can do? Well, that brings us to our final chapter, the arrival of the modern visitor in the jet age. Okay, so two major things happened that completely changed the game. First, Hawaii became a state, which for many Americans made it feel safer and more accessible. But the real revolution, that was technological, the commercial jet engine.
And the result was nothing short of a revolution in travel. Jets were so incredibly efficient that they dramatically lowered ticket prices. And, for the very first time, a trip to Hawaii was actually within reach of the middle class. Package deals started popping up, and the era of mass tourism was officially born.
You know, this table really sums up the entire evolution perfectly. Look how accessibility changed. It went from being a question of courage to a question of wealth, and finally to a question of affordability. What a transformation.
So when you think about it, from the ancient wayfinders reading the stars to us today checking our flight status on our phones, that same spirit of intention is still there. Getting to Hawaii has always been and still is a deliberate act of exploration.
From the canoe all the way to the jet, this journey has been constantly reinvented by technology and human ingenuity. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What will the next great leap in travel actually look like?